In Formula One, having a great driver is not enough. For more than 70 years, engineers have continuously searched for even the smallest advantage that could give their car extra speed. And because of this, some of the most unique, ingenious, and revolutionary inventions in the history of motorsport were born. From a Formula One car with 6 wheels to a vehicle that uses a giant fan to stick to the road. And those are just some of the things we'll talk about in this video. Here we'll talk about the unique inventions and the most important things in Formula One that you might not know yet. But before we start the discussion, I'd like to ask you for a like and please subscribe to our channel as well. This is a huge help for us content creators. So let's get started. Number 10, Brabham VT46B, the car that was too good to keep racing. What if I told you there was a Formula One car that joined a race, won it very easily, and then was never raced again? It sounds impossible, but that's exactly what happened to the Brabham VT46B, which is now better known as the fan car. In the late 1970s, a new technology was starting to change Formula One. Some teams discovered that they could use the air under the car to create more grip on the road. This system is called ground effect. The car has more grip on the track. It can turn faster without slowing down. But the Brabham team had a problem. The engine of their car was too wide, so they couldn't properly use the same design that their rivals were using. Instead of copying others, they looked for a different solution. And this is where one of the smartest and most unique ideas in the history of Formula One came in. The designer, Gordon Murray, installed a large fan at the back of the car. This wasn't to cool the engine. Its real job was to suck air from underneath the car. As the fan spun, it reduced the air under the vehicle. Because of this, it's as if the car is being pulled down onto the track. It sticks closer to the road. It's more stable in corners. It's faster in almost every situation. In other words, it's like a car glued to the road using an invisible force. And when it was tested in an actual race, the results were immediately obvious. At the Swedish Grand Prix in 1978, Brabham ran their new fan car for the first time. The one who drove it was Niki Lauda, one of the best drivers of his time. From the start of the race, it was clear that something was different. While other cars struggled in the corners, the Brabham seemed to have no problem. It entered the curves much faster. It was able to step on the accelerator earlier, and it was more controlled even at high speeds. At the end of the race, Lauda won with a huge gap over his rivals. For many people in the paddock, the message was clear. Brabham discovered something that other teams couldn't match. But along with success came controversy. Many teams complained because they believed it was too dominant. The fan car had a huge advantage. They were afraid it might completely change the balance of the entire Formula One championship. Instead of prolonging the discussion, an unexpected decision was made. The owner of Brabham, Bernie Ecclestone, decided not to use the car again. So even though it was very fast, it only competed in Formula One once. And it only won once as well. Because of this, the Brabham VT46B had a unique record. 1 race, 1 victory. Undefeated. Until now, it is still one of the most legendary cars in the history of Formula One. Not because it reigned the longest, but because it showed how far a creative idea can go when engineering and a strong desire to win are combined. Number 9, Tyrrell P-34, the only 6-wheel winner in Formula One. When we talk about Formula One, we usually think that the driver's speed is more important. But in reality, many races are won because of the unique ideas of the engineers. And one of the most unique examples of this is a Formula One car with 6 wheels. In 1976, a team called Tyrrell Racing unveiled a vehicle that seemed to come straight out of science fiction. At first glance, its design seemed wrong because instead of 4 wheels, it had 6 wheels. It had 4 small wheels in front and 2 normal wheels at the back. Many thought it was just a publicity stunt, but that wasn't the case. The mastermind behind this project was Derek Gardner. He believed that the large front wheels of Formula One cars at that time were a problem. His observation was simple. As the car went faster, more air hit the large wheels. Because of this, the aerodynamic drag, or the force that resists the car's speed, increased. So he came up with a unique solution. What if the two large wheels were replaced with 4 smaller ones? This way, the car would still have enough grip on the road, but there would be less to obstruct the airflow. In other words, the grip would be almost the same but with less drag. And surprisingly, it worked. The idea wasn't just good on paper. It was also proven in actual races. In the 1976 Swedish Grand Prix, the two 6-wheeled cars of Tyrrell finished in first and second place. This is one of the most unforgettable victories in the history of Formula One. The entire paddock suddenly turned their attention to this unusual car. They proved that the design was no joke. Throughout the 1976 season, the car continued to be competitive and regularly scored points against the more traditional cars. But even though the concept was good, it had a problem that engineering couldn't solve. The special small tires it used were only available to one team. Because of this, the tire manufacturer did not prioritize improving those tires. While other teams were making progress, the 6-wheel project was gradually left behind. Not because the design was wrong, but because it was difficult to support the special parts it needed. By 1977, Tyrrell had completely abandoned the concept. Eventually, Formula One implemented a regulation that limited all cars to only 4 wheels. That rule still remains in place today. Nevertheless, the motorsport world has not forgotten the Tyrrell P34 because to this day it remains the only 6-wheeled car to have won a Formula One Grand Prix. This proves that sometimes the ideas that seem impossible are the ones that bring the biggest surprises in racing. Number 8. F-Duct, the loophole that made McLaren faster. In Formula One, it's not always the team with the most powerful engine that wins. Sometimes the real advantage comes from a very small detail that almost no one notices. And in 2010, McLaren discovered exactly that. In the first races of the season, other teams noticed that there was something unusual about their car. On the straight sections of the track, it was faster than most of its competitors. The engine wasn't bigger. There were also no unusual wings or bodywork that could be easily seen. At first glance, the car looked normal. But when you looked at the data, it was clear that it had an advantage in speed. Because of this, other teams started to investigate. Weeks passed before they finally understood where McLaren's advantage was coming from. And when they found out the answer, many couldn't believe it because the secret depended on the driver's own body. To understand this, we first need to know the function of the rear wing. The rear wing is like a wing at the back of a Formula One car. It helps press the car down onto the road to provide more grip in the corners. But there's a trade-off. As grip increases, drag also increases, or the air that resists the speed of the car. So there's a problem. In the corners, you want a lot of downforce. But on the straight sections of the track, you want less drag to go faster. Usually it's hard to get both at the same time. But McLaren found a way. They installed special air channels inside the car. When the airflow is normal, the rear wing works fully and provides maximum grip. But when the driver covers a small hole near the cockpit with his leg or knee, the direction of the air inside the system changes. The effect of the rear wing is suddenly reduced, less drag, higher top speed. When it's time to enter a corner, the driver simply returns his foot to its normal position. The car's full downforce immediately comes back. It sounds simple, but the concept is very clever, and most importantly, it's legal. At that time, movable aerodynamic devices were prohibited. But there was a loophole in the regulation. The driver's body was not considered part of the car, so technically they weren't breaking any rules. When the secret was revealed, other teams like Ferrari and Red Bull quickly made their own versions. But McLaren's original system remained the most effective. It didn't take long for the FIA to notice it as well. They saw that this loophole was just too unusual. So after the 2010 season, they changed the regulations and banned any system that used the driver's body to alter the aerodynamic performance of the car. The F-Duct only lasted for 1 year, but in that short period, it showed just how far Formula One engineers are willing to go in search of even the smallest advantage. Because sometimes the difference between winning and losing starts with simply covering a small hole with your knee. Number 7, Cooper. T43, the design that changed Formula One forever. Today, it's completely normal for us to see the engine of a Formula One car behind the driver. But there was a time when it was the opposite. In the early years of Formula One, almost all cars had their engines in the front. This was the design used by the entire industry. And because this had been done for so long, almost no one questioned if there was a better way. But in 1958, a small British team took a chance, and they tried something different. The name of their car was Cooper T43. Instead of putting the engine in the front, they placed it behind the driver. At first, many people were not convinced. In fact, it wasn't the most powerful car on the grid. It also didn't have the best aerodynamics. But it had one very important advantage: it had better balance. Because the engine was at the back, more of the weight was closer to the wheels, which pushed the car forward. It had better traction. It turned faster. It was easier to control. And because there was no big engine in front, the whole vehicle became smaller and lighter. On tracks with lots of turns, the effect of this quickly became apparent. While the bigger front engine cars struggled to turn, the Cooper was faster and more agile. It gradually proved that what you're used to doesn't always matter. What matters more is what is more effective. Not everyone immediately switched. Many big names in Formula One still favored the old design. One of them was Enzo Ferrari. For him, putting the engine at the back was wrong. But as time went on, the evidence became stronger. In 1959 and 1960, Cooper won the Drivers' World Championship. Suddenly, the entire sports perspective changed. What was once a strange idea became the new standard. One by one, other teams switched to the rear engine design. And by the early 1960s, almost no serious team was using a front engine anymore. From then until now, all modern Formula One cars have followed the same concept. So even though it's not as famous as the other inventions on this list, it might be one of the most important. Because it didn't just make a car faster, it changed the direction of Formula One forever. Number 6, Ferrari 640, the gearbox that changed Formula One forever. Now it's normal for Formula One drivers to change gears using small paddles behind the steering wheel. With just a flick of a finger, the car changes gear instantly. But back then, the situation was very different. For almost 40 years, drivers had to take one hand off the steering wheel every time they changed gears. While the car was running fast, they had to step on the clutch, move the gear lever, and then release the clutch again. And often, they did this while in the middle of a turn, racing against other cars, or driving on a wet track. A small mistake could cause a big problem. The gearbox could get damaged. You could lose your position, and sometimes you could lose your chance to win. So in 1989, Ferrari introduced a technology that completely changed the way people drove in Formula One. This is the Ferrari 640, the very first Formula One car to use a semi-automatic paddle shift gearbox. Instead of a gear lever, 2 small paddles were placed behind the steering wheel. When you want to upshift, you pull one paddle. When you want to downshift, you pull the other one. No more gear stick, no more letting go of the steering wheel, no more complicated movements while racing, faster, simpler, and safer. This system is one of the projects of the renowned engineer John Barnard. His goal was to make gear shifting faster and reduce the mistakes made by drivers. But like many new technologies, not everything was perfect at first. In the early races, the Ferrari 640 often had problems. Its electronics and hydraulic system were still new at that time. And because of the intense heat, vibration, and stress of Formula One, it often broke down. Many times, the Ferrari did not finish the race because of gearbox failure. But as the season went on, the engineers gradually fixed the problems. And when the system became reliable, everyone saw its true potential. Gear changes were faster, less time was wasted, and the driver could focus more on driving. The advantage it gave was so great that it wasn't long before other teams started making their own versions. Within just a few years, almost every Formula One team was also using a paddle shift gearbox, and its influence didn't end there. Eventually, this technology also made its way to endurance racing, touring cars, rally racing, and even to sports cars that ordinary people can buy. Today, almost every modern supercar uses a system that originated from the idea first introduced by Ferrari in 1989. A simple change in the way gears are shifted that completely transformed what we see in motorsport. Number 5, McLaren MP4-1, the safety innovation that saved countless lives. When we see a severe crash in Formula One and the driver is still able to walk away, we often think it's a miracle. But in reality, that's the result of decades of engineering and safety development. And one of the most important reasons why Formula One is safer today started back in 1981. One of the most important reasons why Formula One is safer today started with the use of aluminum chassis. It's lightweight and durable, but there is a major weakness. When the impact is too strong, the structure of the car can easily deform or be crushed. And when that happens, it's usually the driver who's at risk. That's why McLaren decided to try a material that was hardly used in Formula One at that time, carbon fiber. This is the material used in the aerospace industry because of its unique combination of strength and lightness. It's stronger than aluminum, but much lighter in weight. But more than that, it also absorbs impact differently. While aluminum bends and crumples, carbon fiber gradually shatters as it absorbs a large portion of the collision's energy. In other words, less force reaches the driver's body. In 1981, McLaren introduced the MP4-1. This was the first Formula One car to use a full carbon fiber monocoque. At first, many people doubted it. It was a new material. No one knew yet how it would behave in a real high-speed crash. But when accidents happened, the answer quickly became clear. In crashes that could have caused serious injuries in the past, more drivers survived and walked away with fewer injuries. It was proven that carbon fiber is not just an alternative to aluminum. It's better, safer, and more effective at protecting the driver's life. Because of its success, other teams began to follow the same design. Soon, it became the new standard throughout Formula One. To this day, all Formula One cars use a carbon fiber survival cell. Before a car is allowed to join a race, it must first pass the strict crash tests of the FIA. And when we see a driver able to walk away from a very serious accident, there's a big chance that one of the reasons is something first introduced by the McLaren MP4-1. This isn't the fastest invention in Formula One. It's not the most unique either. But it might be one of the most important, because instead of just providing speed, it gave so many drivers the chance to go home alive. Number 4, DRS, the button that changed overtaking forever. In Formula One, it's not enough to be fast. You also need to get past your opponents. And that was exactly the big problem of modern Formula One. As technology advanced, the car's aerodynamic performance improved. They could take corners faster. They're more stable at high speeds, but there's a trade-off. When a car gets too close to the one in front, the airflow it needs for enough downforce is disturbed. Because of this, it loses grip. The tires heat up more, and it becomes harder to stay close to the opponent. In other words, even if the driver is fast, overtaking is still difficult. Races often end up as long lines of cars with almost no position changes. That's why in 2011, Formula One introduced a system called DRS, or Drag Reduction System. The idea behind it is simple. There's a small part of the car's rear wing that can open at the right moment. When it opens, it reduces the drag, or the air resistance that slows the car down. Because of this, the car's top speed increases on the straight sections of the track, but it can't be used any time. There are conditions. The driver needs to be close to the car in front, and he also needs to be in a special part of the track called the DRS zone. When these conditions are met, he can press the button and get extra speed to try to overtake. This system immediately became a big part of Formula One. Overtaking increased. The competition became more aggressive, and viewers saw more wheel-to-wheel battles, but not everyone was pleased. There are drivers and fans who believe that overtaking with DRS is too easy. For them, it's not real racing. It's like the driver behind is just being given an artificial advantage. But for those who support it, it's better to have overtaking than to have almost no action happening on the track. And the debate still continues. But whatever your opinion about this is, one thing is clear. DRS has changed the way racing is done in modern Formula One, and many of the most exciting battles in the past decade started with the simple press of a button. Number 3, Williams FW14B, the computer-controlled car from the future. What if I told you there was a Formula One car that was so far ahead of its competitors that the FIA was forced to ban the FW14B's technology? That's the story of the Williams FW14B. In 1992, Williams became dominant in Formula One. In the first 10 races of the season, they won 9 and quickly secured the championship. But this success was not only because of the driver's skill. They had a technology called active suspension. In a regular car, the body of the car naturally moves. When accelerating, braking, or turning, this problem can affect aerodynamics and performance. But in the Williams FW14B, it uses a computer-controlled hydraulic system. There are sensors that continuously measure the movement of the car, while a computer adjusts the suspension hundreds of times per second. Because of this, the car remains almost level and stable even at high speeds, heavy braking, and fast corners. The result is a car with a huge advantage over its competitors. In the hands of Nigel Mansell, the Williams was almost unstoppable. Even his teammate Riccardo Patrese regularly fought at the front of the grid, showing that their success was not just because of the driver. Technology also played a huge role. As their advantage grew, many started to ask questions. Is this still Formula One, a battle between drivers? Or has it become a contest between computers and companies? In the end, the FIA made a decision. After the 1993 season, they banned active suspension and other electronic driver aids to restore the bigger role of the driver in the race. Until now, the Williams FW14B remains one of the most advanced and most dominant Formula One cars ever made. A car so excellent that even the rule makers themselves were afraid of its potential. Number 2, Lotus 79, the invention that changed Formula One forever. If there is one invention that truly changed Formula One, many experts believe it is ground effect. And the car that popularized it was the Lotus 79. In the late 1970s, most teams focused on adding bigger wings to generate more downforce. But Lotus founder and designer Colin Chapman had a different perspective. Instead of looking at the top of the car, he looked underneath it. He discovered that if the underside of the car was properly designed, it could create a low-pressure area that would pull the car down toward the track. In other words, the faster the car goes, the more it grips the road. And the best part is, it generates a lot of downforce without significantly increasing aerodynamic drag. The 1978 debut of the Lotus 79 instantly demonstrated the era's capabilities. In the hands of Mario Andretti, the car was dominant throughout the season. He won 6 races, while his teammate Ronnie Peterson also won a few more. Soon, all the teams noticed their secret, and as often happens in Formula One, the race to replicate their success began. Within just a few years, almost every competitive team was also using ground effect. But this incredible performance came at a price. When the airflow under the car was disrupted, downforce could suddenly disappear and the driver could lose control. Because of this, There were several serious accidents, and eventually the FIA restricted some aspects of this technology. But even though the regulations were changed, the fundamental principle of ground effect never disappeared. In fact, modern Formula One still uses it to this day. Much of the downforce of current cars still comes from underneath the car, an idea that was first introduced by Lotus several decades ago. Many inventions have come and gone in Formula One. Some were banned, some were forgotten, but ground effect has remained a part of the sport up to the present. And because of its wide influence on the design of racing cars, many consider it the most important aerodynamic innovation in the entire history of Formula One. Number 1, Halo, the safety device that silenced its critics. Not all of the most important inventions in Formula One were made to make the car faster. Some were made to save the driver's life, and there's no better example of this than the Halo. In 2018, the use of the Halo became mandatory on all Formula One cars. It's a strong titanium structure placed above the cockpit to protect the driver's head from accidents or large parts that could hit them during a race. But at first, many fans and even some drivers opposed it. For them, the Halo looked ugly. Others also said that it ruined the traditional look of Formula One. But it didn't take long to prove why it was important. At the Belgian Grand Prix in 2018, Fernando Alonso's car flew over Charles Leclerc's car after an accident. In the early part of the race, the underside of the car hit the Halo directly instead of Leclerc's helmet. Many believe that the outcome could have been severe without that protection. But the most well-known example happened at the Bahrain Grand Prix in 2020. In a terrifying accident, Romain Grosjean's car crashed into the metal barrier at very high speed. The car split in half and was immediately engulfed in flames. For several seconds, no one knew if the driver was still alive. But after 27 seconds, Grosjean managed to get out of the burning car. According to investigations after the accident, a large part of his survival was due to the Halo, which prevented the barrier from directly hitting his head. Since then, it has helped in several other serious accidents in Formula One and even in lower racing categories. The criticisms gradually disappeared. What was once seen as ugly and unnecessary is now a crucial safety device. In just a few years, the Halo has proven that safety is more important than the appearance of the car. And for many drivers, this may be the invention that gave them a second chance at life.